In this episode, we are going to make the camera rotate smoothly around the character while the character is moving. We'll also add a brand new mesh that will animate later, and we'll implement the jump action so your character starts feeling alive. Along the way, we'll face a few unreal challenges that will push us to rebuild a part of our blueprint. By the end of this video, you'll have a character mesh fully controllable with both keyboard and mouse and the gamepad. This code belongs to Ludoria, my newly named game, and the entire project and all the code are open for you to explore. Watch the description to access all lessons. Each one covers one important aspect of this development. Make sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell, share this video, and leave a comment below. I read them all. And if you want to go beyond tutorials and start building your career in video games, visit woolen.com to learn more about the Game Creator Accelerator, the lifetime mentorship program that helps you build your first prototype, set a path to continue developing your technical skills, and provides you the methodology and the strategies to build a die-hard fans community, find job opportunities, and prepare for your mid and long-term independence as a video game creator. Always with me at your side. Now, let's continue. In the previous video, we finished with this boring character, and I want to make some changes. Go to Windows and select Fab, and select any 3D character that is rigged. That means that it has a skeleton inside the character. It's not just a static mesh. There is a free group of characters that are called Paragon that belongs to an old game of Unreal that you can use. All these characters are rigged and you can use them. Because I've been collecting assets for a very long time, I have another characters that I want to use. So I'm going to click on my library and look for Sci-Fi Troopers Collection. Select this one, and I want to add these beautiful characters for Ludoria. Add to project and wait. Once the character is imported to your project, you should find some new folders with that information. Let's open it, and inside you can usually going to find the folders related to the assets of that character. Let's say I'm going to take the Sci-Fi Troop 1, and I'll go to the skeletal mesh. This is a character that represents one of the females. I want the male. So let's go back to levels. Let's try, oh, this is the name, it's a girl. So let me try the 01 skeletal mesh. And I'm going to pick the one that is named skeletal mesh, not the physical assets, not the skeleton. This is the character I want to use. And if you go to the skeletons, you can see the entire structure of a skeleton around the entire mesh. We're going to use it because we require the skeleton to make the animation of this character in the future. Let's close it. Having selected the skeletal mesh, I will open my blueprint, go to the viewport, select the component, the mesh component, and inside the section of mesh, you have something called the skeletal mesh asset. Remember that we changed the scale. So I'm going to put the scales to the original values 1, 1, and 1. And now, because I previously selected the skeletal mesh I want to use, I can click on this arrow and the mesh will be assigned. If you haven't selected, you can also click this arrow and look for the skeletal mesh that you want. Immediately, I realized that the direction of the skeletal mesh is wrong. I had to turn it 90 degrees. So I'm going to turn this 45, use the rotation and move it 1 and 2. Now it's looking in the right direction. In fact, the direction of the camera. Compile, save, and map. If I play, there is our character. This is the first step. The second thing I want to do is to be able to rotate the camera around my character. If I play the game at this moment and I rotate the camera, the character rotates with me. And I don't want that. I want the camera boom rotate around my character. Back in our code, inside the implementation file of the shooter character CPP, I'm going to add another property for the camera boom that is named use pawn control rotation. And I'm going to assign the value of true. This line is what makes the camera follow our mouse or gamepad when we look around. When it's set to true, the spring arm rotates based on the player's input, so the camera orbits nicely around the character. If it is turned off, the camera stops following the controller and it's just stay fixed behind the character. You can't look around anymore. Let's save and go back to Unreal. Compile and let's play. As you can see, it is not working, and sometimes this happens in your projects. And when this happens, stop the project, go to the blueprint, and check the value of that property. Let's select the capsule and look for use pawn control rotation. See here, and here it is. Pawn control rotation is false, even though we declare it as true inside our code. And sometimes this happens, which is that even though we declare things in our code, when we already have a blueprint created, these changes do not apply. So you have to go directly to the blueprint and apply the values. In my case, I want it to rotate. Compile, save, go to the map, and if I play, now I am moving, I'm rotating the camera. But there is another thing that I need to add. Let's check all the values I have to set to make this works. Back in our code, first I'm going to change this value from use controller rotation from true to false. This line controls whether my character turns with the camera. When it is set to true, the whole character rotates every time I look around. But when I set it to false, the camera can orbit around the character freely. That is the first thing I want for our third-person view. But that is not enough. I have to configure also the character movement. Remember that we have a component to handle the character movement. So I can call that component and start setting some parameters. The first one is orient rotation to movement. And the value will be true. Now, even though the component is part of the character, I need to make an inclusion or an include of the corresponding header. The include is game framework character movement component H. Let's save, and now we don't have errors. Let's go to the other properties. The next one is the rotation rate, which is the speed for the rotation. It is defined as a F rotator, and I'm not going to pass any other but the second parameter. This will control the rotation of your character, defining the components like the first one will be the pitch, the second the yaw, and the third is the roll. At this moment, I just want to control the yaw, and the other components I wanted in 0. So I'm setting the value of the yaw to 540. The other thing I want to set up today is the jump, and I want to define the velocity of the jump to, let's say, 500. And finally, the air control equals to 0.2 F. This last parameter controls how much we can move the character while jumping. A value of 0 means that the character jumps straight and stiff, no air movement. A higher value makes it feel more arcade style, like Mario. I'm setting it to 0.2, just enough to adjust your jump a bit, but still feel grounded in physics. Let's save and go back to Unreal. First, compile. Go to our blueprint, compile as well, and now let's correct the values to confirm that they have the same parameters as we defined it in code. I'm going to try to place the windows one beside the other. And now let's look for these values. The first one, the use on control rotation, is true here, it is true here. Perfect. Then the use controller rotation, I want it false. The pitch, let's check if this is the pitch. Oh, no, this is wrong. I want the yaw to be false, the pitch to be true, and the roll to be false as well, just as they are here. Now we can go to the character movement and look for first orient, rotation to movement. You see here is true and here's false. Let's make it true. Let's check that rotation rate. Here we have the parameters and we can realize that Z is equal to 540. And this one should be the value of Y. So 540 and this one will be 0. Let's check jump velocity. 500, that's good. And air control, 0.2. Perfect. Compile and save. Let's expand this again. Try to play. And now we are rotating, but we still have some issues to solve. Let's see what they are. I need to add an extra line of code here for the player camera. And it is be use on controller rotation and set the value to false. You might get a bit confused between this line and this line. The first one makes the spring arm follow our controller. That's how the camera orbits around the character. The second one tells the camera itself not to use the controller rotation because the spring arm already handles that. In short, the spring arm rotates with our input and the camera just follows smoothly at the end of it. Let's save and go back to Unreal. Compile. And let's check that value, the use pawn rotation, inside our blueprint. Look that the camera boom doesn't have parameters. It seems like if some parameter has been broken on my blueprint. So what I will do is to create a new class or a new blueprint, based on the shooter character that I know is correct. So right click and create blueprint class based on the shooter character. I'm going to save it in blueprint and let's call this my main character. And I'm going to finish with BP. Let's open this new character blueprint that I created. Click on the camera boom, and here you can see that we have the parameters. So it seems like my original character was broken for some reason that I don't know. But now you have a way to approach these kind of errors. I want to add the same mesh that we use on this one. So let me find the mesh, which is in Troopers, Sci-Fi Trooper 1, Skeletal Mesh, and this is Skeletal Mesh. Select it, go to my main character BP, the new one, select the mesh, and assign it on the Skeletal Mesh. As you can see, the position of this one is incorrect. Let's fix that. First, let's check the capsule properties. And you can see that the capsule half height is 88. So I need to move this mesh 88 down. Select the mesh. And in location corresponding to set, let's move it minus 88. And now I have to rotate it 90 degrees. Select the rotation and let's move it 90 degrees. Compile and save. Because I plan to use this new character, I have to go to the game modes. Remember that we created this one previously. Open it, and I'm not going to use the base shooter character BP. I am using my main character BP. Compile, save. This is a good problem because we're refreshing previous knowledge. I can close it, go back to map, play the game, or And now I forgot one important thing, which was the input. We need the mapping context, we need the move action, the lookup, and the turn. Compile, save. And here we finally have the problems that we got a moment ago solved. Now let's remove the blueprint that is no longer working. Select it in the blueprints, right-click, and delete. When you're prompted with this information is to confirm that you are really sure about what you're doing. Because we don't have this blueprint connected to anything else, and we know that we are going to have problems, we can say force delete. Now I have my only character and it is working. Now let's rename it because I really don't like this name. I like that it's finished with BP, but I'm going to name it base character. Test again, and everything is working. From the previous lesson, we can remember that we called two different actions, one's to look up and the other for turning. I want to compress these two into one. So let's go to the shooter character header, and I will copy these values, but I will create a new action called look around. The comments will be action to turn yo and look up and down together. And I will also create a method that will be named very similar. Look around method. And the comment will be look up or down and in yo by using mouse movement or right gamepad. Because it's a new function, I'm going to click here and create the definition. And now I'm going to copy the content of this function and also just the second part of this one. I want to create a new vector to handle these two at the same time. Let's call this one look around vector. And I'm going to copy this one here and this one here. This action will be called with the input action that I just created, which was the look around action. And this is the function that we called at the end. I will save as well the header and go back to Unreal. Because we need a new input action, let's go to our input folder and I'm going to right click, input, input action. IA for input action, look around. Click the input action and select the value type of axis 2D. Save and close. And now let's assign this action to the mapping context. In the mapping context, I want to add another one, which will be the look around. And I want to assign the mouse XY to the axis. And I'm going to add a modifier to negate the movement related only to Y. Remove this one and save. Now back to our character. I need to add the new input. But first I have to compile. Now I open my base character and here's the look around action. We're going to add the action I just created. Compile and save. I'm going back to the implementation file, and just to test this, I'm going to comment out the turn and the look up. So even though there will be code, nothing should happen. Save, back in Unreal, compile, And let's test. As you can see, it's still working and the character is turning in different directions. That means that I can remove these functions. I don't need this binding action. And I can go to the header as well, remove the functions, and remove the input actions for lookup and turn. Save. Back in Unreal, compile. Let's check that we don't have any errors. And test again. And everything is working. Because we don't need these input actions anymore, first we have to remove them from the input mapping. So the turn and the lookup are out. And now I can remove the input actions, which are the lookup and the turn. They have a reference still associated with the character, but we are not using that anymore. Let's check on the base character, and here they are not longer connected. So I can securely remove them. Delete, force delete, compile, and test, and everything is working. For the next step, I want to add a jumping action. Back in our project, let's just add a new action that we'll name jump action. Action to jump. But the good thing about the jumping action is that it is defined on the character movement. We don't have to create a new function to execute the jumping. We just have to call the function jump. In the implementation file, we just have to add a new binding. In fact, there will be 2 of them to the new created jump action. And the difference will be that the jumping action has 2 stages. One when it's started, and the other when you release the button for the jumping. When you start, you will call the function jump. And when you finish, is the stop jumping. Save and get back to Unreal. I'm going to add a new input action for the jumping. Input action, jump. And in this case, different to what we did before, the value type will be a digital bool, because the jump action is just an instant that I want to grab, which is when you push the button for jumping, and that's it. Back inside the mapping context, I will create a new mapping for the action jump, and I will assign the spacebar. Save that, base character. Let's compile, because I still don't have the input action. Now I have the input action for jump, and I assign it. Compiled, save. Let's go to the map, moving the character, and jumping with the spacebar. Now let's add the gamepad as well on the mapping context. For the look around, select another one, and here, gamepad, right thumbstick to the axis. Let's test it. Perfect. Oh, I forget one important element. I have to add a modifier for a dead zone and another for a scalar. And in the case of the jump, I'm going to assign the bottom A of an Xbox control. So add another, click here, and I'm just going to use the button A to assign it. Save, go back, and now I will use my gamepad. Okay, looking in all directions, I can move, and I can also jump. Excellent. And there you have it. Our character in Ludoria is now fully controllable with the keyboard and mouse and the gamepad, with a smooth camera rotation, a jump action, and a solid foundation to keep building on. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next episode, where we'll keep expanding Ludoria step by step with more mechanics. And remember, if you want to take your learning further and start building your career in video games, visit woolon.com and learn more about the Game Creator Accelerator. And set a time to talk with me. Links in the description. Till next time, keep creating, keep sharing, and most importantly, keep dreaming big. I'll see you soon, my fellow creators.